As you drive down M24, you get to look over and see the beautiful view and the farming that has been continued. And they would like to continue that, even though it is to their detriment, to their loss. They would like to continue to operate the farm for the benefit of the community and of their family's heritage, and our heritage, and also the barn. The problem is that there has been changes in the economic circumstances of farming over the years, where it's no longer a readily viable situation. For example, the operation now, as happens in a lot of farming families, the youngsters don't want to operate the farm. They get into more acceptable businesses where they get paid better, and they get an alternative occupations. That occurs, and the economics of running a small farm are not what they used to be. Tougher and tougher. So they would like to continue to operate the farm and continue to maintain their farm for their benefit, for the family's benefit, and our heritage and their posterity. I would like to talk very briefly about the law, because there was a letter which I understand was submitted to the township. I don't know if it made its way to the file with regard to the ZBA petition or not, but there was a letter and it did misstate the law. I supplied the ZBA with a number of exhibits, which one of which states our position with regard to the law. And what has been said is that the law requires, as it does, that there be an unnecessary hardship imposed upon the property owners if the property is to be continued with the restrictions that are currently imposed upon it. And there was a misstatement, however, in the letter to the township. The letter indicated that under the law, under Michigan law, unnecessary hardship requires that the property be, quote, virtually unusable as currently zoned. That's not the law. I've attached over there on the table a number of copies of the case that does state the Michigan law. And that case is Jansen versus Holland Charter Township. And it's the Michigan Court of Appeals case in 2002. In that case, very similar to here, we've got a farming family. They had 100 acres of land, and they had petitioned the township to rezone. They did it twice, and the township said no. They then went in front of the ZBA, and they requested that the ZBA allow them a variance with regard to the density. And the reason was they wanted to take that 100 acres and put up a 400-unit residential complex. And the ZBA granted that variance. The people who opposed it took it up with the Court of Appeals, and they argued that the applicants had not met their burden of proof to demonstrate that they had unnecessary hardship. The Court of Appeals said, and I'm quoting here, with regard to property such as this, where there's an investment in property, it's an asset, and the owners of an asset have a right to expect to make a certain pertinent earning on that. And the quote is, whether property used in trade or business or held for production of income can reasonably be used for a purpose consistent with existing zoning will, no doubt, ordinarily return on whether a reasonable return can be derived from the property in zone. So what our focus has got to be on is whether this land can yield a reasonable return with the zoning that's imposed upon it. It goes on in that case, it says the ZBA noted that the annual rental income for the farm was $6,000. Annual rental, there were two houses that were on there, the wind goes up, they got another $12,900 from that. And the ZBA noted that taxes were $8,000, and they concluded that the applicants could not realize a reasonable economic return on that 100 acres as it was currently zoned. So they said, okay, we will allow you to build a 400-acre, 400-unit residential complex. Court of Appeals said, we hold that the ZBA's conclusion that the property cannot reasonably be used in a manner consistent with existing zoning was supported by competent, material, and substantial evidence. That's because they showed that the amount of income that they had was $19,000, the taxes were $8,000. They said that's not a reasonable expectation of earnings, and accordingly, you're entitled to the zoning modification, the variance. Court of Appeals also said further, when a landowner has made the requisite showing of financial hardship and compatibility of the proposed use with the character of the neighborhood, which is fine well, the variance should be granted. So that's what the law is, that's what the law in the state of Michigan is. And, Mr. Best will be able to address the finances with regard to what, the property yields as far as renting out every year. And it's roughly 100 acres, the same as, where they're gonna put that apartment complex. And, you'll be able to provide the information as to what the earnings are, the expected earnings are, and what the taxes are. So if you wanna look at it with regard to the 100 acres and what the economics are of that, or if you want to just focus on the farm, as well as, let's just focus on the smaller part, the farm.
Is everyone going to get the same time as Mr. Poretta?
This
This is a public thing.
But you just have 3 minutes.
Mr. Poretta is the petitioner. This is not.
He is the petitioner?
Well, represents the petitioners.
Okay,
That's what it says in the information that he submitted.
thank you, that
You're welcome.
clarifies
So it's a
that.
different,
Thank you, Darlene, I appreciate it.
I'll wrap up in 30 seconds. If you look at the 100 acres and look at what the situation is, it's clear that it doesn't return a reasonable amount of profit based on an annual basis. If you look at the barn itself, that barn yields nothing. It used to be an integral part of the operation. They stored equipment in there, there was stored tractors in there. They had animals in there at one time, grain, hay, different things like that. It's now empty. It's not used under the current operation, under the economics of farming today, and the changes in the business today, that barn is empty. So it yields 0, but there's a lot of expenses involved in maintaining it. Our clients will be able to address that with regard to tax. But the law is that under those circumstances, they are entitled to a variance. Thank you.
My name's Richard Best, and I'm the owner, and I'm the one that wants the variance. I'm 72 years old now, and I've farmed all my life. In fact, the house I live in, my dad was born. I just can't do it anymore. And even if I wanted to, my equipment is all old. It would cost too much money to get it going. So I would really like to preserve the barn, but I need to have an income to do that. The barn alone, just to preserve it, is $3,000 to $5,000 a year usually. My income is very low now. Probably, if I released the ground, I would get a maximum of $13,000 a year. My taxes and insurance come to about $12,500 this past year. So in order to keep going, I have to do something, and this is what I'm trying to do to get an income to preserve the farm. Frank had mentioned about the condos or the housing complex, and I don't want that stuff. I would like to preserve the farm and keep it like it is. So that's why I'm asking you for a variance, so I can do that. Do you have any questions you would want to ask me, or? If not,
Yes. Do you have any questions on that?
That'll be a 4th generation when your grandson takes over, eh?
yep. And I want to preserve it and have it just like it is now when he takes over. And my grandsons. So,
That'd be a 5th generation.
yep, that would be a 5th. And I just became a new great-grandpa today, so there's another one coming along. So, but anyways, if you have no questions, I would like my son here to say a few things. Would you like to now?
You just hit it. You just said everything I was gonna say.
Did you want about anything here, and that's gonna be Hunter? Okay. That's all I have then.
Do you have anything else you'd like to say? Nick, do you have any questions?
Nothing specific as of now.
I do have a question about, just wanted to make sure that you would understood that you would follow the site plan that was provided to the,
Yes.
with the packet.
Yes.
See that you have considered, the Disabilities Act, so we're gonna have, safe parking and safe access for anybody that would need it for, like a handicap situation.
I
Including parking.
don't want that barn to fall in like the barn on the corner of Kyle Road. That fell in. The barn down the road a quarter mile from us, that fell in.
So
I want
you're-
to preserve it.
And would you have, some sort of engineer inspection so that it
Yes.
shows that it's a safe, sound building
Yes.
for the
We have had builders in there, we have had the actual engineer, because before we even did this, we wanted to make sure that is it even feasible, you know, I mean, I'm a plumber, I can't tell you if a barn's gonna fall over, and everybody that's been in there just couldn't believe the structural value of the barn, how good it was, and how great shape it is in structurally, obviously cosmetically, it needs some lipstick, but we can take care of that. And there will be 140, about approximately 145, car,
Do you have anything else?
parking spots. Where the barn itself, the usable barn would be just under 5,000 square feet, give or take. We got some storage and stuff that we've gotta make in there. And then, of course, we'll have the handicap parking and all that kind of stuff, so we, you know, right up to, you know, the standards of what it should be if you're gonna have public in and out of it.
And you'd follow, of course, the noise ordinance of the township and everything like that.
And as you'll know, everybody that lives on our road and around us is here tonight, so I'm hoping that,
Are they in support?
Well, we'll find out in just a
we'll
minute.
find out.
Any other questions at this time? You'll have another chance if you need to. Okay. All right, then I'll open up to, comment from the audience. If you could please use the, podium and state your name and address.
Maybe I should have done that, I didn't see it.
All right, so.
Hi, my name is Meg Bergstrom. I live at 1205 Best Road. I live closest to Ricky's house on Best Road. And I am so much in favor of this. I want this road to be preserved the way it looks with the trees and the farmland. I don't want it to be parceled out eventually and have it built out. I've been in the barn at its open houses. The barn is absolutely beautiful. I work in the food service industry. I'm a chef. And I can tell you, when he told me his idea, immediately I started thinking, oh my God, eventually they could build a kitchen and we could do catering right out from it and get licensed for that. I think it would be a wonderful boom of business in our area, to all the privately owned businesses here in this area. It's gonna draw in more business, people coming for a wedding, they're gonna stop at the local gas stations, they're gonna stop at the local grocery store. So I see no problem with this at all, and 100% support of this. I don't have any concerns about noise, because they've had some pretty big parties down there, and we don't hear anything. Like I said, we live closest to them, so. Traffic on the road, I mean, obviously, when there's an event going on, you're gonna get more traffic, but that's not something that's gonna, it's not gonna disrupt our lives at all, so. That's it, thanks.
My name is Dean Morrell, this is my wife Shelley, we live at 1105 Bass Road, Metamora. The
best has been part of Metamora for generations. It would just be a shame if this didn't go through and they had to sell, and driving north, if we had to see condos or a big chain store. This is Metamora. It's all about family, and I don't have an issue with it at all. I know my brother-in-law and my father-in-law will do everything that they need to do to make it safe and up to code. And you know, it's a dead-end road, so yeah, we're gonna get a little bit more traffic, but I'd much rather have the traffic and have the best farm stay in the family than a bunch of condos or something else put there. So I am 100% in favor for it, and I think it'll be great for Metamora.
I agree with everything my husband said. Obviously, right behind us is one of the fields that would probably be the first one to be sold and would have a subdivision or condos or something like that. We don't want that. We can put up with a little bit more traffic if it means saving the farm. Thank you.
My name's Deanna Herr, this is my husband Tim Herr. We live at 1191 Best Road, we've lived there for 20 years. I grew up next door at 1105 Best Road. And we have no issue with this. I would rather have the preservation of the barn, the traffic that's coming down the road, versus again, having a subdivision built around me. If a subdivision comes in, I will be the first one to put my house up for sale and move out of the area. Which means if I move out of the area, I take my grandkids with me, I take them out of Lapeer schools, because we will move farther north. I don't want gravel trains coming up down my road. I have no issue whatsoever with anything. That we don't ever hear anything that goes on down there. I mean, okay, we hear the corn hauler guy, hay in the field next door or whatever, but as far as music, as far as the traffic, I have no issue. And I have my grandkids 5 days out of the week. They play in the front yard, and the traffic is not gonna be an issue. It's not gonna be an issue, so.
I agree.
Afternoon, Michael D'Annunzio, I live at 1063 Best Road.
Excuse me, what was your last name, please?
D'Annunzio,
Spell it.
D'Annunzio,
And your address is?
1063 Best Road.
Thank you.
So I moved in about 3-4 years ago, trying to get away from city living and things like that. So as Deanna said, I would probably be one of the first to move to if they put a subdivision that butts up to the back of my property as well. My first week coming to work on the house, Rick stopped by. It felt awesome to have like neighbors that were willing to come and talk to you and stuff like that. So again, my wife couldn't be here, but I have no issues with it either. She does it. She's a photographer, so if anything, it'll help her business because she could, he could recommend her if people want to use her as well. So traffic, I have 2 little girls that play in the yard all the time too. I don't think traffic will be an issue either for us. But I can tell you, I would hate to see that land be sold, and that's the whole reason I moved out to Metamora is to get away from that type of living. I grew up on 12 acres. I always wanted property and wanted to be around like farmland and things like that. So again, to what everyone else has said, I would probably be the person moving on 100% behind them and them doing this right.
Hi, my name is Christine Newton. I live at 111 Jamestown Drive. And I have a story, kind of a little story that I came in to share with you guys tonight. It's really special to our family. So here's my story, and I'm here to express being in favor of improving the special land use variance on the Best Family Farm, so I'm in favor of it. We moved here from Florida after my husband's job as a Disney animator was terminated. Disney was transitioning artists from painting on canvas to painting electronically. This change was resisted, but it was necessary for the survival of the Disney movies. This job loss led me to the internet search. I found a French teaching position in the Lapeer School District and flew up immediately to interview. To convince me to take the job, the high school art teacher gave me a tour of the famous Metamora sites, such as the Hadley Metamora Park, the White Horse, and of course the Metamora Market. This was the place to raise a family. I thought it was written. I accepted the job offer, and a week later, my little girl started kindergarten and first grade here. In our transition from Magic Kingdom to Metamora, my husband searched out a location for his next art project. He was drawn to the barn in the distance off of 24. He stopped on the side of the road and took pictures of the serene landscape and the historical barn. And here's the painting that we painted when we came in 2001. So, everybody can see the painting, but I'm going to show you. I don't know if you guys see the painting, but- We hung his artwork in our kitchen for everyone to see. Most importantly, we could gaze and take a look at the beauty of this magnificent barn for more than a few seconds. The quick drive past it was not enough. The historical barn and the big chicken were landmarks that helped my children to understand that we were close to home. My girls have since graduated and moved close to Detroit for their careers, but they still come out to visit and are connected by the memories of the country landscape that includes the drive on 24 past our landmark barn. We would love to have the best barn for a wedding venue to continue this connection with our adult children. This repurposing of the barn would provide future opportunities for our family to create new memories in the place where we chose to raise our children. Please vote yes on a variance for special land use and keep the barn alive for generations to come. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Susan Huff, 5047 West Road, and as I told Rick, I wish them good luck. I hope that they are able to do a wedding barn. I think that would be fabulous. But I do not think a use variance is the way to do it. Looking at Frank's copy here of Jansen v. Holland, it's number one, a very different case because it was zoned agricultural. They wanted to make it residential. But he highlighted, to conclude, that the property owner has established unnecessary hardship, the zoning board of appeals must find on the basis of substantial evidence that the property cannot reasonably be used in a manner consistent with existing zoning. And this property can be used in a manner consistent with existing zoning. I totally understand and respect and agree with the best's preference not to use it that way, because it could be subdivided, it could be used for additional residences. But I agree with you, Rick, I agree with everybody here, that it would be wonderful to have this stay as a unit, as a farm. And a wedding barn, if you think you can make it work that way, that's great. We've already got wedding barns in Metamora. I don't know how they did it, but we've got them. So the best certainly should be able to do that. But a use variance isn't the way to do it. It could be done through conditional rezoning. It could be done by the creation of a special land use in the A1 and A2 districts. That's what Elba Township did. I'm a little concerned when I hear, we just chit chat back and forth across the table. You're gonna do this, you're gonna do that. This is what Elba Township did when they were going to have an event barn. They created an ordinance. These are the 4 pertinent pages, and they are very specific about alcohol, hours of operation, health and safety factors, etc. I want to see the township do it right. I don't want it to be another
one and done, which is what seems to be happening. It used to be that if you had a variance, it went through the planning commission for the site plan, but that got removed a year ago. So there's no requirement unless it's put in as conditions. And I would hope that if we are going to pass this variance, that there will be conditions put in place that will protect the health and safety, that will ensure site requirements are covered, because this variance runs with the land. It doesn't just stay with the Bests. And if for some reason their circumstances change and they sell the property, the next person coming in gets the same conditions that this board puts on it. And if they aren't adequate, then there are no protections for the neighbors, for the community. So that is what I would ask, as you consider this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen Borshako, I live in the village. I want a second.
What's your, could you spell your last name for me?
BRASCHAYKO. Again, I want to second everything that Susan said. I'm not even opposed to this idea. I'm opposed to having now, after the Turbo Ted vote last year, some of us really started learning about this, because this just does not seem right to allow that variance in a residential district. That will stick with me for the rest of my life, Mr. Poretta. And so we started learning about this, and as I learned and read, all the criteria that was applied to allow that, and allowing it to become a popularity contest. Are all neighbors all okay with it? Is anyone willing to speak against it? I heard you say, Mr. Bellinger, to Andrew Darian, had maybe someone spoken against it, maybe we could have done something about it. That's not how it works when you read about ZBAs and how the zoning is supposed to work. So let's make sure we're applying the right criteria. And it also scares me, just like with Turbo Ted's, and he's got all kinds of chemicals out there, because I have been around mechanics my whole life, and I know how many chemicals are out there. There was no criteria put on there, just was someone who said, oh, it looks like he's doing a good job. But you've got to actually supervise these things. And I produced events for 9 years. I was on production teams. And so I know what goes into it in other places and what doesn't go into it here. And so if this becomes a thing, I think the site plan should have to be approved by the planning commission. I think because they go through it thoroughly. I have seen them do that with other businesses. And also the fire marshal should be showing up and checking it out, just like it should be everywhere else. I want to point out a couple of things. So Traci, you abstained in the last ZBA from voting. But according to the manual from MML, if you're going to abstain, you shouldn't even be asking questions. Have you guys read the handbook? Anyway, and Mr. Holden, do you have any conflicts of interest? Because it appears from comments in Metamora, Michigan Gang, that you have done a lot of business with the Best family as well. So I think that we should be disclosing these things and we should be handling them properly. And have you gotten any training, ZBA training? Okay, can you elaborate on what that has been?
The Michigan Township Association website, MTA website.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad you took some steps. But I do hope that we are following the basic ethics criteria. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is David Taylor. I live 135 Kyle Road, Metamora. I live on the 80-acre farm that I grew up on as a kid. And I am so used to seeing those fields, the corn, the beans. When I was younger, it was cattle, a lot of them. But we don't have that anymore today. But our farm is on two sides, is surrounded by the Best farm, and we all love it. My family loves it, and we are. I'm speaking for my family and myself, but we are totally 100% against for the Best family. And however they want to fix that up. And I think that's a beautiful location, and I can't imagine anybody not wanting to have a wedding in a place like that. I think it's beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, we did receive, a letter, well, there were 8 people notified, that their property was within 300 feet, so they did receive notices about the hearing tonight. We did receive one letter, in support. We did receive the letter Susan Huff, also submitted. Applicants, do you have any final comments that you'd like to make?
I'd like to just very briefly respond to the comment that was made. It would be preferable to have the zoning change, that sort of thing, and it should be a matter of the township planning commission.
I'd just like to correct, I didn't say it'd be preferable, I said it's an option. Thank you.
I believe this is the author of the letter that misstated the law, and I would like to clarify that also in that case, the Court of Appeals discussed the propriety of using use variances. And they discussed how the agricultural industry was changing, the area was changing, and they said, we believe that restrained and managed development, in part through the issuance of use variances as the changing conditions create unique hardships for those remaining agricultural lands, is a reasoned approach. The Court of Appeals approved this exact process that we're undergoing here today. I'd also like to comment, not in the capacity of being an attorney, but as an individual too. For years, I would drive down N-24, and as you go into work, you gaze across, you look across the field, and it brightened my soul, it brightened my heart to look across the field, to see the fields in agricultural use and where they're bought across it. And I certainly hope that they can be continued for future generations. Thank you.
I would just like to make a note that the planner and, the zoning administrator, they were consulted on the process of the evening. So this is the appropriate process that should be taking place. This board is allowed to make use variances. So I just wanted to make that note. Any other questions or comments that you?
Yeah, I do have one. When did directly this to the best family, when did this idea come about?
Tried, so, when Grandpa passed away, you know, we got the land, and it was divided up, and I said, Dad, you know, he said, he come to me, and then it just blindsided me, and he was selling the property, and he was going to a paving company at the time, and they come out, and they drilled, and we were gonna be compensated extremely well, and I was gonna be able to live on the land for 20 years, and I kinda tried to fight it a little bit, you know, cause it's where I grew up. That's all I know, and all the things I do, and everybody knows that. Well, I do a lot of praying, and it fell through. and at first, I didn't know, I had mixed feelings over it, and so it was over with, and again, Dad and I sat down and I said, well, I'll do the hay for you, and I didn't take into account the machines and the hay fields that are done, they just don't produce any longer, and the amount of money it takes, and when you're only doing 100 acres, even though the farm's just over 200, it's only got 100 total acres. When you do that 100 acres in hay, there's not much there. So I did it for several years for him, and each year the money just dropped. Finally I came to him, I said, let's sell, I'm done. At that point in time, you know, we decided to sell it, and as you know, we had a cash buyer. I don't know how many times that I talked with Mr. Holden, and they were right, and that guy it was gonna be subdivision, and everybody here saw the sign at the end of the road, you know, and so at that point in time, I done deal, and I went up in the field, and I sat there, and I sat under a tree that my grandpa always sat and watched us do hay. And I sat there and I lost it, and I'm like, I can't, I just can't. So I stopped it, without even him knowing. I got ahold of Mr. Holden, and I said, we're done, I'm not doing it, I'm gonna do something, I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do, but I'm gonna do something. And we thought, well, let's do the pumpkin. Well, we put pumpkins in, we put 10,000 plants in. We did have a fruitful crop, not nearly what we expected because we had deer and they ate them all. So we did have enough to have one weekend that we made $2,000 freaking dollars. That was nothing. It cost me almost that to put them in and to have everybody there working and doing all the stuff that we did, you know. I had to pay a guy to come in, an excavator, to do a bunch of work. By the time it was darn near a wash. So at that point in time, we talked about the wedding barn and we had my son's open house June 10th in there. We kind of just cleaned it up, had it in there, and everybody was saying, gosh, you gotta do this, you gotta do this, you gotta do this. So at that point in time is kind of when we really went, forward with how do we attack it, how does it work, I'm a plumber, I don't know how to do this stuff, so. But I can guarantee you that barn's gonna be the way it needs to be, if there's gonna be public in it, I can promise you that.
I also want to note that it's not being rezoned, the piece of property, they're not asking for rezoning, so it is still technically 1 acre parcels on that property, that wouldn't be changing.
But this is only on the 19-acre parcel, isn't it?
The barn.
Isn't that what the variance?
We're not changing any zoning. We're not changing, like, could potentially there be 1 acre homes there someday? That could still happen, I mean, that wouldn't change from this. Okay, any more? Yeah, all set. Okay, then, we'll adjourn the public hearing. Okay, next on the for approval of the minutes for the July 20th, 2023 meeting.
I'll make the motion to approve it.
Second on that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, any public comments that are not scheduled on this agenda this evening, you would have 3 minutes each. Oh, we'll just this. I'm sorry.
Susan Huff, 5047 Road. Metamora is what's known as a qualifying township, so I do not disagree with the planner or the zoning administrator that you do have the ability to offer and authorize use variances. However, just because you have that doesn't mean that you don't have to have permissions in the ordinances. You have an ordinance that grants you the authority to authorize variances for practical difficulties. Practical difficulties are non-use variances. We have no language, no authorization in our ordinances for use variances. If you did, I would not be arguing with you about this. Elba Township again, they've got a nice group of municipal attorneys down in the city.
But we're not Elba Township.
Nope, you're not, Phil.
All right.
You're a long ways from it. And I have property in both, so I do understand that. I know the difference, but this is 2023, not 1923. And the granting of non-use dimensional variances are very different standards than the standards that are required for the granting of use variances. And we need to upgrade that. We need to get the ordinance
to date. Between 2012 and the first part of 2022, the ZBA had only heard one request for use variance, and it was properly denied. The chairman at that time was Frank Poretta, and he said they wanted the variance for economic purposes and that that was not an acceptable reason for that variance, so it was denied. Now we have 2 use variances in less than a year, so I'm trying to figure out who is saying apply for use variances. I can't believe it's Joe Israel, the zoning administrator, because he knows that use variances shouldn't be given when the physical characteristics of a property, they should only be given when those physical characteristics prevent it from being used for permitted use within a zoning district. I can't imagine it's the supervisor, because he knows that word travels quickly in Metamora, and if the community thinks that the ZBA is easy, it's gonna undermine our zoning ordinance, make a mockery of the idea of impartiality, and it is unfair to the people who count on the master plan of this township being followed. I can't imagine it's a ZBA member, because you guys know that although granting a particular variance does not set a legal precedent per se as to later cases, it sure as heck makes it a lot harder to turn down a variance when the applicant throws the previous variance in your face. And contrary to what I heard from a ZBA member, you aren't here to fix mistakes people make or make it legal for them to do something our ordinances don't allow. In August of 2022, the Planning Commission acted on a request from this board to remove the requirement for Planning Commission site plan review. And therefore, we have an auto repair shop in a residential district with one requirement, no more than 5 cars. Nothing for health, safety, setbacks, etc.
Richard from the village again. So I just wanted to read to you from the ZBA manual, just so we're clear. They say that if you're going to, a ZBA member is going to abstain from voting, do not participate in deliberations, either as a member of the ZBA or as a citizen. Although no one can be prohibited from speaking as a citizen, comments from a fellow ZBA member will likely be viewed by the audience as being very influential to have an appearance of bias. So Tracy, I would like to know why you asked questions in the last meeting.
I don't have time, thank you.
Okay. Well, I hope that we are very much considering that, because we live in a township, this is a small town, and we know, I mean, Tracy and I went to school together, so I know she's the best. Although I've not heard that disclosed previously. But we need objectives. This is a point Susan just made before. We need objectives. We need objective criteria applied, not a popularity contest because we all know who wins. We need things to be fairly applied across the board. And the way Susan described it, with the special land use, that would, what happened with Turbo Ted's is a travesty, in my opinion. It should not be allowed. And then we're gonna have other people trying other things, and we know we've got lots of people doing businesses. We should have fair criteria that is applied. Again, it's wonderful that people have a lot of neighbors and support. That should not be the determining factor. Even if no one comes and opposes, that's also not the determining factor. I hope you are applying the proper criteria. Thank you.
Is it still public time, Tracy?
Yes.
Do I need to go to the podium?
No, you stay right
Okay. Bill Holden, 4151 East Street, Metamora, Michigan. So I, along with my father, had the best property listed for sale. Met with Dick and Ricky and others numerous times, and I don't have anything but support for this. We tried to talk them out of selling, believe it or not. Again, small community, I'm not taking into consideration all the other legalization of things that other people have brought up. I'm just going from a common sense, family-oriented place that I'm in full support of this, and I'm glad they are doing what they are doing. So that's all I had to say. And real estate is my living. So if I would have sold it, would have been great. I would have felt good about it. So I'm glad it did happen. Thank you.
Public comment is closed. Unfinished business, so we will, this is the public hearing about the decision on the variance request from Richard Best and Rick Best on the parcel of 44015-018
is a hardship case. Sure, because I'm a neighbor, my farm backs up to part of their farm. And, to me, this is a hardship case.
Further comment?
This piece of property is unique that it's at the end of a dead-end road, yet it has access to M24. I feel that you have thoroughly communicated the economic changes that have happened, that you would still continue to operate the farm, but yet this would make it possible to retain it. I feel the venue would be an asset to the community. I think it would be nice. I agree that it would be helpful to local business. I also want to note that it would be expected that, of course, all safety standards, structural standards would be, just like any other commercial, wouldn't be commercial, but any other building that might have public involved, and that he would be expected to follow the site plan as presented. And that would continue. This would remain with the property. So the variance goes to the property, not to people. With that, I think we are ready for a vote.
Yes, ma'am.
Make a motion to be ready for?
Make a motion that we vote. Okay.
I second that motion.
You need a motion to, you want to repeat that, Tom?
I'll make a motion that we vote, that we're ready for a vote.
And I second that motion. Ready to vote.
So with that, you would announce your support in yea or nay, or yes or no? Want a motion on that?
It's not a motion to approve the variance.
Or should? Okay. I make a motion to accept the request. So can we vote yes or no? Okay, so the yes or no would represent accepting the variance from the restrictions. Yes.
So we're gonna do a roll call and the board members will make their decision.
So the motion on the floor is to vote. It's not a motion to approve the variance?
I can make that motion that we do variance.
Bill, your motion is to approve the variance, is that correct? Thank you. So Phil's motion is to approve the variance, we'll do a roll call vote. Traci?
Yes.
One moment, please. Traci Chouinard is,
Yes.
Phil Bellinger?
Yes.
Nick Holden?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion passes.
Are there any other, is there any other new business for discussion